Alright, so for this video, in order to make some rivers, like this one over here, you'll be needing some paint, white, black and blue. You'll be needing some masking tape, a scissor, some thick paper, 2 brushes, one for the main work, one for details. And then you'll be needing something to tape the paper onto. I got some old shelves here. If you got all that, you can go make some real nice rivers. So before we start crafting, I wanted to show you these pieces of river that I've made, putting on a battle grid. And if this looks like something you'd like to have at your own table, then stick around and watch the guide, because I'll show you how to make them. Okay, so here we're starting off with an old piece of river I made some time ago. I'm making sure that the 2 new pieces that I've drawn have the same measurements on the ends, meaning I can put them together and make a rather seamless river when I put them on a scatter terrain on a battle grid. You can see the paper is taped onto the 2 shelves I had. That is to avoid to prevent the paper from warping once you put paint on it. I just realized that I wanted to cover the corner here, and I'm just fixating the pencil drawing beneath some thin white paint right now. That's to avoid it from smudging. But the reason you tape the paper down onto a surface is that when you apply the paint onto the paper will start warping, and it will warp a lot. Even though it's taped down right now, you will see that some waves will occur during the video, so keep an eye out for that. And here I just started making some stones, plotting them in, mixing some white and black paint right on the canvas or the paper. Don't be afraid to mix wet paint, because you can actually get quite a lot of added value from it, because when things are mixing naturally, you get some good shapes out of it. Here things are slowing down a bit, because you can see how I'm adding some water to the brush and then mixing the paint once more. And then I'm adding both black and white, trying to get a decent color that I want to work with. I didn't want a perfect blue. And because the paint is thinned down a little, it also becomes more transparent when put on the paper, meaning you will get different shades and saturations of blue, and you can see already there are some quite nice brush strokes and variations to the color on the river. And I just let the brush do the work. I add some paint onto it, and then I'll see where it takes me. And then if it makes some good brush strokes, I'll let them be. If it makes some not so good strokes, well, then I'll just paint over it again. On the right side, you can see some warping on the paper already. Just wanted to point that out. And again here, I'm just putting different shades of paint on the brush at once, and then just seeing where it takes me. It's kind of like when you're looking at clouds, looking for pictures and figures in the clouds. That's the same thing I'm doing here. I'm just plotting down some lines and see where the brush takes me. And then if something good happens, I try to work on that. And if it's just boring and annoying, then I'll paint over it and maybe try forcing something myself. I don't try to control everything, because I can't. I'm well aware of that. And even if I could, I would just end up with a very sterile and rigid piece, because my imagination is not as good as nature is. And if you just look around, then there's nothing perfect around you. It's all different bent shapes and different kinds of color and shading. So if you try and just airbrush your way through life, oh, that became philosophical, it will not look real or authentic in any way. And that's what I'm trying to fake here with the rivers, just seeing where the brush strokes takes me, and then try and go with the flow, so to speak. Here I'm slowing down a bit again because I want you to pay attention on how the paint is applied to the brush. You can see I take some white, and then I turn the brush around a little, mixing it with blue, and then I'm using different angles of the brush when I'm applying the brush strokes to the paper, getting some variations to the color and the thickness of the paint. Here I switch to the smaller brush because I'm adding some details to the rocks, and I want their shape to stand out compared to the river. It doesn't have to be much, but I just wanted to break the form a little, so they're easy to identify as rocks and not just some odd things painted onto it. And now I'm starting to work on the edges, just making sure there are no white annoying dots when I'm cutting it out. So just filling out the paper and then letting it dry. Here we've forwarded a little. Acrylic paint dries up really quickly, so it's the same day. Probably just like I've waited a couple of hours, maybe a handful. You can touch the top surface, and then you can feel when the paint has dried up enough for you to cut it out. You can also see I'm really careful when I'm peeling off the tape here. I don't want to tear off some of the paint by accident, so you always want to try and peel the tape off in the right direction so you don't rip into the river itself. So this took about 20 minutes so far, the paint job alone, but we are not done yet, because even though the rivers, they were taped onto the shelves, they are not perfectly flat. You can see some of the edges are popping up. And now I'm showing how the warping works if you do not hold down the paper while drying, because like you can see it's moving up and it's warping. It's almost curling down, touching the two edges. But if you apply paint to the other side, then you even things out. It's not perfect because you can't ever get the perfect measure amount of paint and then the strains within the paper. So it evens things out, but it's not perfect, so you have to do something more. But I'll be painting the backside of the river pieces right now. It also makes them work, as you can use them to mark dark spots on your battle grid in the future if you want to make some kind of cave or maybe a tunnel or some chasms where people don't want to fall into. But yeah, just trying to color them all dark, black on the backside without smudging too much black paint onto the top surface. Here we've fast forwarded a day. You can see this small piece here. It's not flat. It's not too bad, but it was dried out in the open, while the two pieces of river, they were drying underneath pressure from the two shelves. I didn't put them together that well right here, but you get the idea. It'll do. So there you have it, two pieces of river. Here's a setup of the finished product. You can recognize the two pieces of river put onto a battle grid along with some other scatter terrain to make up for an interesting encounter. Thanks a lot for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, found some inspiration of your own, and perhaps even learned a thing or two. Should you be interested in supporting the channel, aside from just throwing a like and subscribing, then I'm a published author. I write books, I paint illustrations, and I got a few other things in the works as well. You can see some of my work at tscout.com. There you can also find links to social medias, as well as places where you can buy books and artwork. Any support will be greatly appreciated, even if it's just a click or two to help fight the algorithm. So thanks for watching once again. Hope to see you again soon.